Hello, everyone. So my name is Ramon. I'm here today to talk a little bit about Redux. I want to have a little bit of understanding of how many of you guys have heard about Redux before. Can you please? Cool. So we have 50% of people. Hopefully that after 5 minutes, the other 50% will understand a little bit about the concept. So I'm Ramon Victor. That's my Twitter. Please talk to me if you have any feedback about this talk. I'm working in Booking.com as well. So I'm a front-end developer there for more or less 1.5 years right now. And yeah, it's been amazing to come from that beautiful city on the background to live in Amsterdam. It's been very cool. So I'm here today, like I said, to talk about Redux. And since at Booking, we value a lot the fact that we can take some learning from the frameworks and apply that somehow using just plain JavaScript. That's pretty much the inspiration for this talk. I want to introduce Redux by talking a little bit what was the motivation behind it. So pretty much most of the frameworks that we have right now, and also all the libraries that we use, they use this kind of basic concept where you have controller that manipulates a model, and then you have the view that is going to display the change for the customer. But after some time, that's start to get a little bit more complicated, and then you have situations like this where one model can update another model, and then it triggers an event emitter that does something else that magically works. So sometimes it's hard to fix bugs when you have this kind of situation. And that's where Redux try to help you in trying to make some limitations on how can you update the state of the application. And this is a creator of Redux, the guy that I think he works at Facebook. He proposed the Redux as a predictable state container. So how it works, pretty much at this point I think predictable is kind of a tricky word for you maybe, but that's possible because they try to introduce these 3 key concepts. Like you have a single source of truth, which they call the store, which is pretty much where you put all the state of the app. And then the only way you can update that, which is the second principle, is by you dispatch some actions. So I'm going to show some code maybe that will make sense a little bit more when you see the examples. And the third one is all the changes that you make inside of the store to update the state, you make that using just pure functions that take some arguments and does not access any global function from the outside scope. So in that way, when you combine these ideas, you have this kind of unidirectional data flow where everything starts from an action that goes to the store, update the state by running some reducers inside the store, and that comes back to the user with a UI change. That's pretty much the idea. And I have this case study that I've been playing with Redux concept in vanilla JavaScript. I decided to build this small tic-tac-toe game just to understand how things work behind the scenes. How can I create a store from scratch? How can I create the reducers from scratch? And pretty much to learn the basics behind the Redux concept. So everything starts from action, like I mentioned before. So whenever people click on the grid that you just saw on the quick demo, I have access to the store by using the getState method, as you see there. And then I want to update the first index of the grid. So what I do is basically I dispatch an action that contains a type, which type I want to apply. It can be the set X or set 0. And I send the index to the store so that they will update the state based on those 2 arguments. So we also have the store, which is pretty much the wrapper for all the functions that can update the state. So the getStore method is something like this, where you can see the whole state of the application in a JavaScript object. And the methods that we have on the store is pretty much those methods here that you can see. So you have the subscribe method, which is any UI that wants to render a different thing on the UI when the state updates. The UI can subscribe by using the subscribe method. So whenever you dispatch a function from the UI, it's going to run the update function on the line 7, as you can see over there. And then you are able to reproduce that change on the UI. I will show the flow a little bit more in detail later. So you have the reducers that are basically running inside of the store. And the reducer looks like something like this, where you have like first argument is the piece of data that you have from the state. And the second argument is the action that you want to apply to that state. So based on this, you have the switch case conditions here. And depending on the action, that will be applied to the state and will return a new state to the UI. So if the reducers cannot understand what exactly it should do with the state, it's just return the same state it was before the action being triggered. So pretty much what happens when you run the reducer is something like this. You have this state is initial state. We have nothing in the array there, and then after you apply a reducers, when user click on the first index, you have this new state on the store. So that's where you know that the UI should reproduce a change on that particular index that gets updated on the store. So this is pretty much the unidirectional data flow idea, where things start on the UI. So user click on the index. We capture that with the event handler click. We dispatch the action to the store. The store receives the action as an argument, as you see there, and it will run the update function that contains multiple reducers. And after running this, you have the render method that's listening to the subscribe of the store on the second line, as you can see there. So when the roll flow gets to the end, then the user see the change on the UI. So this is the principle. Like, this is very easy example. Of course, as the application gets a little more complex, you can handle like other situations, like nesting or a reducer inside another reducer is also possible. And I also did something for this particular example. I did like a multiplayer thing that pretty much using Node.js and Socket.io, where I receive the action coming from the front end, and I just send the same action to the other client. This is the back end for this particular project. There is nothing more than this. So a little bit before I require the modules, and then I dispatch the action, the same action that comes from the front end on line 12. If you see, there's no, like, I don't need to have any conditions, and that allows me to have this working. So you play one browser that's synchronized with the other. You don't need to do anything, but like any magic or anything, like take the action that comes from front end and send to the other browser, and that's pretty much it. So if you want to know more about the details of the way I did that using just JavaScript, nothing else, like no dependency or anything, you can go to the project on GitHub. I created the project. I have a Medium article that describes all the details of how I did that, which concepts I'm applying on the store to be able to reach the result that you guys just saw here. Redux documentation is pretty cool as well if you want to use the library that contains more like advanced concepts on how to use the store in a more like appropriate way for big projects. It's possible to find that on this particular page here. And we are outside on booking booth. You can come to me. We can keep the conversation going, because 5 minutes is kind of hard to like describe such a complex implementation. But I hope you guys at least got the idea. And thank you very much.